Yo, yo, yo. This is candibknittin. I'm Candy B. I be knitting. And this week we're just going to continue the odyssey of the bags. I do have a bag to introduce to y'all. This is a gift bag. I finished the blanket I was making for my coworker. And here is the finished object. Yeah, it doesn't really matter what the right and wrong side is, but this is the right side, and it's just a garter stitch blanket. I cast on, it's a DK weight acrylic wool blend. I cast on like 130, 140 stitches. I just kind of eyeballed it based on what I saw other patterns doing. And then after I knit the main blue and gray y'all are seeing, then I picked up the edges and just did a garter stitch border with a contrasting color, and it's this orangey yellow color, and this comes from a Lion Brand cupcake. And I'm very much into doing, contrasting borders with things, just because I think it's a great way to use up stash, because that way I can use the entirety of the main blue and gray yarn you see here without like being like, okay, how much do I need to reserve to do a border, da 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 da. Used up every single bit of that, and then a few scraps from my stash just to finish off the last couple of rows, and then I just pulled out a yarn from my stash that I thought went well with it. And yeah, like I said, I think that's a great way of using up stash, and adding some visual interest to a otherwise, just plain square blanket. I've told y'all before, my coworker is, what do you call that? She's retiring, and she's been, part of the team, always been good to me. And so I made this with the inspiration that she has a lake house that she likes to go to. And as I was doing this, I was like, yeah, the blue and the gray fits, because I think that those are colors that she likes a lot. But then as I was putting this orange on here, and I just used the orange because it contrasts with the blue and I think makes a striking border, but then I was like, oh, it's kind of like a sunrise. And I think this colorway might be called Sunny Day. And so you almost get like the blue and the gray of a lakeside experience with like the oranges and the yellows of a sunrise or a sunset. So I feel like it's like kind of on brand with the inspiration. And if you remember, I cast this on with the intent of giving it to her, but then a couple of episodes ago, I was just like, well, I'm making this, but then I was going through, I guess you can call it my random knit bag, finish objects that have that aren't necessarily my personal style, that I just made because I wanted to make them. And I came across this shawl, and this is the limestone shawl, and it's a single skein shawl, lace weight shawl, or lace patterned shawl. It's 50% wool, 50% cotton, and I came across this and I was like, oh, this would make a great gift for her. I think this actually complements her really well. And so I was kind of torn about, I was like, oh, the blanket is more practical, how practical is like a little lace weight shawl, but then also the shawl I feel like is more impressive as far as showing off my knitting skills. So I really wanted to give her a gift that was comparable with, how I feel about her. Like, this took some time to put together, and I had to pin it out to block it and stuff. And then I realized that I have the tendency of making rules where there are no rules. And so I was asking Mr. Rulut, I was just like, oh, what do you think she would like more? And he was just like, why don't you just give her both? Like, you have this shawl that's been sitting around for more than a year that you have no plans for. He was like, if you give her this shawl and you keep the blanket, what are you going to do with the blanket? And I was just like, just keep it and give it to someone else eventually. There is a new baby coming into my my sphere, and there's always a baby being born, so I was like, oh, maybe I'll give it as a baby blanket to someone. And he was just like, just give her both. And I was just like, yeah, you're right, there's no reason I can't give her both. She's certainly deserving of both, and like I said, it would just be sitting in a literal sack in my craft room. Yeah, give her both. So I'm going to give her both. And so after this is all wrapped up, these are going to go in some nice tissue paper, going to go in this bag. I wrote her out a card, and when I gift knits to people, I, do a handwritten card, telling them, congratulations, or, my sympathies or whatever. But then I also give washing instructions and what the composition of what I've given them. So this is it has acrylic and wool in it, but it is machine wash safe, tumble dry low, or lay flat to dry. This is 50% cotton, 50% wool, and with this lace pattern, you probably want to hand wash this and lay flat to dry. So I gave her those instructions and what they're made of in the card that I wrote to her. And so yeah, after this episode is over, I'm going to wrap these up, put them in a bag, and then the bag will go in my car. She's wrapping things up this month until she's in and out of the office, and I'm in and out of the office, and so I'm just going to bring it to the office, and the next time I see her, I'm going to give it to her just so I can make sure I get it to her, because she is truly retiring, and I don't know if and when I'll see her after her last day is. And so like I said, half the battle is getting the bag into the car and not forgetting the bag. And so that's going to get 2 finished objects out of my house and fulfill a gift event for someone that I care about. So that's going to be great. And of course the bag is I was looking at the tag, and this was a birthday bag that my daughter got. And so always save your gift bags and recycle your gift bags. And I take good care of my bags so that I can reuse them for future gift giving experiences. And so check and check. 1 less gift bag at my house, 2 less finished objects in my house. Just got to get them into the car, get them up into the office, and then remember to give it to her. The next thing I wanted to show y'all, I want to show y'all what my absolute favorite project bag is. And it's this. And this bag is, some of y'all may recognize what the actual use of this bag is. This is when you buy a set of sheets. Usually it comes in a coordinating cotton bag. You buy usually it's like 2 pillowcases, a sheet, a flat sheet, and a fitted sheet. My sister, when I was pregnant, gifted me a bunch of stuff, and she just bagged up some things, and she used this bag to bag up some baby items for me. And then I started knitting, and I started using this bag, and I posted on Instagram, and she's just like, why do you have my old sheet bag? And I'm just like, oh, because you gave it to me with some baby stuff in it, and I started using it for knitting. And the reason I love this is it's the perfect size for, a mid-size project like socks, hats, the beginnings of a project, if you just have one ball you're starting on, like a new shawl or something. And then it's cotton, so it washes really well. The fabric is, pretty durable, and it has a drawstring. And the drawstring, first of all, my knitting doesn't snag like, with a zipper, or if you had buttons or a clasp or anything, it just kind of smoothly comes out. 2, it has a drawstring that it can hang from my wrist. And so this is also usually the bag I take to church. I take it when I go to the playground with my kids. Usually I have it hanging from my wrist, and I can walk around and knit when my kids are playing on the playground, and then I can quickly shove things into the bag. And it works really well. I like it a lot. I feel like it's on par with a lot of the hand sewn bags I see people making and selling for a pretty penny. And so I'm like, this works just as well. And inside of this is my walk around. Usually my preferred walking knitting project is all stockinette. So usually either a sock that I've gotten to a certain point, or a hat that I can just go. And it also lends itself well to I can just knit, 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 knit without thinking about what the next step is going to be. And so inside here, y'all have seen this project before. This is a bunch of hand spun that I'm kind of playing around with. And I started off knitting it as if it was going to be a hat, and then I had more yarn than I thought. And so this is going to be, I'm going to keep knitting. I have like this much yarn left, and I weighed it. And what I do is weighed it, did a row, saw how much yarn a row took. A row took about 1.3 grams of yarn. And so when I get down to, this is like, I think 40 grams left in here. When I get down to like maybe somewhere between 5 to 10 grams, I'm going to start to bind off. And the bind off, what I'm going to do is, I had a couple of options. I could have made a hat, then it got a bit longer than I would do for a hat. Then I was just like, I can either fold it in half like this and do a cowl, or I can wrap it around like this and do a cowl. And I think I'm going to wrap it around like this and do a cowl. And so I'm going to keep knitting, like I said, until I get those 5 to 10 grams that are left. And then I'm going to bind off this edge to my cast on edge. And I'm not going to do any, obviously if I had known what I was going to make, I would have done like a provisional cast on and did like a seamless grafting, but it'll be fine. If I'm upset about the seam, I can always just twist it so the seam isn't in the front. Or the seam might add, because it is hand spun, it's going to give it more of like a rustic look, but I don't think it's going to be that noticeable, especially since I'm binding off kind of in the round. And so I'm just going to knit two together, all the, match up. I put on my cast on edge, I put a safety pin into like the first stitch. And so I'll just make sure my stitches are lined up really nicely and just knit two together. It doesn't have to be super fancy. It's mostly just kind of showcasing my hand spun and kind of getting a feel for like a sampling type exercise. So I did, this is some Gotlin. This is the Coopworth that I dyed with some coffee. And then this is the Gotlin blended with the Coopworth. And so it's going to be like a sampler when I'm done that I can like look at and be like, okay, I did a 2-ply with this. This is the gauge I got with this. This is the gauge I got with this. These are size 5 needles. I kind of just eyeballed it and was like, I'm going to go with a DK thing, even though this isn't necessarily super consistent all the way through. But I was like, on average, it's about a DK. So I did size 5 needles and I cast on like 92 stitches with the idea that it was going to be a hat. Now it's not a hat. And I'm not going to... I'm going to, what do you call it? I'm going to block it a little bit aggressively just so I can make sure it's really going to fit around my face really nicely. And I think it's going to fluff up really nice. And it's just going to be something, I'm going to wash it, block it. Obviously it is June 1st in the Northern Hemisphere. So we're going into summer. So this is just going to end up getting washed really well and then stored for the winter. And I think it's going to be a nice piece for like, if we need to go out on like a walk in like the peak of winter. And I think it's gonna like, hide my face really well if I don't want to breathe in like the really harsh cold air. And it's just gonna be just a nice little piece. And then it's gonna be hollow in the center, so it'll trap air and then that air will get warm. So this is gonna be for like I said, that 1 week in January, February here in Virginia where it actually gets like, below freezing. And, I happen to be outside or I'm driving somewhere and the car hasn't quite warmed up yet. Not going to be a frequently used item, but when I need it, I'm going to love it and use it well. Or I was thinking like if I had a friend that like to like ride bikes in the winter, this might be a really good piece for them to keep them warm and to cover their face and stuff like that. We'll see. I also just think it's really handsome with the Gotlin has like some gray and some dark areas in it, and then I have like this nice coffee area. So I think the coloring is really sophisticated. Like if I had like a camel colored coat to go with this, I think it would look really like So that's that. Almost done with this, and then this bag will be empty again, and my next walk around and knit project will go into there. And I'm chugging along. As I said, this is my hand spun, and it has a bit of Coopworth in it. And this is the 2-ply Coopworth. And I want to show y'all the rest of the Coopworth I have, because right now I'm just kind of like just playing around with my hand spun. And so this is the rest of the Coopworth, and I keep my fleece. This is the Coopworth came from a fleece, and I keep my fleeces in old pillowcases. This is just a ratty old pillowcase we've had since forever, and I've started using it for my big fleeces. And what's in here is I've washed the fleece when I got it and got like all the really bad dirty bits out of it. But I must say, one of my weak points is I don't have a lot of patience, and so I could have more like aggressively skirted it and got rid of like some of the second cuts. There's still a little bit of veg matter in here, so I've just been basically taking little tiny bits at a time, opening up the locks, taking out those second cuts, really taking a good look at the staple length, because when I'm skirting and when I'm washing the fleece, sometimes I'm just like, oh, I paid money for this, so I want to get every single little bit of usable fleece out of this. But as far as like the spinning experience is concerned, I would really like to get more uniform and make, I want to improve my skills. And so conventional wisdom says that you should take your locks out, put, similar lengths together, have them facing the same way, and things like that I kind of rush through. And so, yeah, I've been taking the locks out, kind of opening them up and making kind of almost like little clouds, and then I put them in here, and then this is how I get them ready to go through my drum carder. And so this is like one of those, I'm watching TV, I've got like maybe 15 minutes, I don't really have time to pull out a knitting project and get too deep into the weeds on that, or I've finished a couple of rows on my LaPouf cardigan, and if I start another row, it's going to be another 10-15 minutes before I finish that row. And so this is something really quick and easy I can do and get a bit of work done a little bit every night. And so I'm kind of chugging through that. But you can see here I have a lot of this, and so there's going to be a lot of practicing and sampling and trying out different techniques. And like I said, I dyed some of it with the coffee. I'm probably going to dye more of it. But the main thing I've been doing with this is practicing my long draw. And so these are 2 finished skeins of the Coopworth. These have not been finished yet. So like I said, I've been preparing the locks a little bit every night, then running them through my drum carder, making bats, and then this is the result. This is 3-ply spun long draw. And what I haven't done yet is I haven't like washed them in like usually I take them and I put them in like hot tap water, let them sit in there and set the twist, and then I take them out and I kind of like just snap them and then dry them. So they just need a bath, basically, long story short. And so I've really been enjoying practicing my long draw. This is a 3-ply. I'm working not only on long draw, but working on not overplying, making balanced skeins, getting my twist angle just right. The other thing I did with this is I've been doing a lot of chain plying when I do a 3-ply, because, I don't want any length of yarn to go to waste when you do a chain ply. First of all, you can use one cake and work from just one cake, but also, or one bobbin, depending on how I make center pull cakes before I ply. But you can use one cake and very, very little goes to waste. But I do find that my chain plying tends to be kind of over plied. And so I did spin up 3 separate bobbins and then plied the 3 bobbins together. And also with the chain plying, because you're plying, so when you chain ply, say you have a length of yarn about this long, you create a almost like a crochet. It's exactly like a crochet chain with it. And so every bit that you're spinning is getting twisted back on itself. And so let's say I sit down at my wheel and I start spinning, and I start spinning really thin because I'm really focused on what I'm doing, and I'm like, okay, I'm going for, as thin as possible. That's usually my goal, so that I can ply them together and get a certain length, thickness. But then I start listening to music, I'm listening to an audiobook, I walk away, get distracted, and then next thing you know, I'm doing it a little bit thicker. Or maybe I get areas in the fleece that are, fluffier than others or what have you. And so the larger the project you're spinning for, conventional wisdom would tell you that you should mix up those plies so that you get more balance. And so you have a greater statistical likelihood that you're mixing, say you're spinning really, really thin one day and really, really thick the next day. Those two plies will kind of even out, as opposed to when you're chain plying, all those thin spots end up spun together, all those thick spots end up spun together because you're plying them, sequentially. So a lot of people, when they're spinning for like really, really big projects, they'll have a bunch of, bobbins, and then they'll spin their first bobbin with their last bobbin and then like randomly match up their bobbins so that they are, distributing any irregularities throughout the whole big project. I'm not spinning for any particular project. I did get kind of inspired as I was making this. I got this is probably, I don't even know. This is maybe 150 grams, but I haven't done the yardage yet. And I probably wouldn't measure yardage until I wash it and snap it and dry it and everything. And you can also skein it after you wash it. But because I have so much of this, I'm thinking shawl. I'm thinking like probably towards like a worsted weight shawl. I have one particular shawl in mind, but I don't like to say, because then I feel like, I'm beholden to that thing. Not that you guys, care. You probably, if I said I'm going to make this and then I don't make it, I don't think you guys would be that upset about it. But I do have the idea that I have enough that I could make a really nice size shawl, and it'd be like this just big fluffy hand spun shawl. Also, I'm gonna probably hold on to some of this because, I was telling y'all, I can play around with this, I can try out different techniques, I can dye it, but I do want to reserve some of this because I have a Jen Steingass project that I want to make a hand spun color work sweater by Jen Steingass, and I am going to need white for that sweater. It's going to be, I want to do orange, brown, and white, and so I'm kind of on the lookout for like the perfect orange, because orange can be kind of dicey depending on what shade you're looking for. I want to lean more into the rust and not so much into like bright orange. And then I'm thinking maybe a nice like natural brown, like if I can find like a raw fleece that is brown. And then this would be the white in that sweater. And I'm making the Ventersole, by the way. That's the pattern. I actually have purchased the pattern by her. And so I'm kind of just on alert, like, I don't know if y'all have like projects in mind and you're just like, okay, the next big sale or the next big festival I go to, or next time I go shopping, I'm going to be looking for XYZ thing. And so I am going to hold on to, maybe 150 grams. It's color work yoke. I don't think I'm going to need that much of it, but I do, I don't think I have not made an entire sweater out of hand spun. So I do want to make sure I have more than enough. So that's all I wanted to talk about this evening. Just wanted to show y'all a couple of things. I showed y'all a finished object, showed y'all some spinning. So I'm going to leave it there. Once again, I'm candibknittin. I be knitting, I be spinning, I be gifting. You can also find me on Instagram at Rulude. Lots of nice gardening content there if you're so interested into how things are going in Zone 7 so far this spring going into summer. You can also find me at Ko-fi, at Rulude. You can send me an email, candibknittin@gmail.com. Comment, like, subscribe, share with a friend, talk trash about me on Craft Snark, any of the YouTubey, internety things. Until next time.